Last night, also a sea of red robes. Actually, it's not so often that so many people from the Abbey attend an event in town. But it wasn't just any old event. Venerable Children was on a panel that all of us wanted to hear. It's an interfaith panel discussion, honoring life, a compassionate discussion on the realities of the death penalty. So Washington State, where we live, is one of the 33 states in this country that still allow the death, not just allow, enact the death penalty for capital crimes, or capital for murder. And so the discussion was an interfaith discussion, very interesting panel. It was made up of a Catholic nun, Sister Mary Jane Farley, who's been a Sister of Holy Names for over 55 years. I think she had the seniority in terms of her own spiritual leadership. Rabbi Michael Goldstein from Temple Beth Shalom was also on the panel. And then Reverend Bill Ellis, who was the dean of the Episcopal, what's it called? Cathedral, the Episcopal Cathedral in Spokane. And Venerable Children, who was obviously representing the Buddhist perspective. And the whole thing was moderated by the Unitarian Universalist Church minister, which is kind of appropriate given their eclectic, ecumenical, inclusive view, Reverend Todd Eckloff. The panel was the brainchild of a woman named Victoria Thorpe. I think Venerable might have mentioned her in BBC's before. She's an author, an activist. Her sister was convicted of a crime, of murder, 18 years ago. Or maybe 19 years ago. She's been on death row for 18 years. According to Tori, and according to Tori's book on this topic, and that she wrote on the basis of the transcripts of the trial, there was never one shred of physical evidence of this murder. No body, no murder weapon, no blood or sign of violence, no crime scene. There was a missing person and a sister who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong thing. Karma ripened in a really painful way. And this family has been living with their belief is the wrongful conviction of this woman for for 18 years. And so Victoria has been working through, of course, many things about this, but the thing that I find most inspiring is that as she's working to save her sister, she is working to save everybody. Her passion has grown to wish to remove the death penalty from every state, that everyone who is on death row can be, that we will never kill as a state again. That the murder that the state does legally is the same kind of killing that the very people that we're convicting have done. And in fact, they haven't always done. So I took some notes on some of the statistics, and then I want to talk about the Venerable Children's perspective. $1.2 million, they say, was one of the first things I thought was the economics of it. It cost $1.2 million to give someone the death penalty. $89,000 on life without parole. Financially, it doesn't make any sense. Since 1976, more than one half of those people who have been executed were non-white. Since 1973, 140 people on death row have been exonerated. So that's not a whole lot if you look at the number of people that have been killed. But how many didn't? As we know in this case, actually with Victoria's sister, the court has yet to allow an appeal. So who knows how many people have been killed wrongly. So just the numbers were amazing. I was surprised to learn from Sister Farley that the Catholic Church, from the Pope on down, has a strong edict against the death penalty everywhere in the world, because they care for life so much. Same is true with the Episcopalian Church. And then the rabbi spoke a lot about rabbinical law and how, in fact, in the Jewish tradition, it is allowed. But the qualifications for what makes someone able to be killed are so huge that, are so detailed, so specific, that it's almost hardly ever executed, never done. So all of this was very moving. The speakers were really powerful, and Venerable Children was the last one up. And I have to say, from my own perspective, although I was very touched by what I heard, when Venerable spoke, the whole issue of this death penalty went from being a public forum to a very personal issue of the heart. Because her question says, the question that they were addressing was, should Washington State retain the death penalty or should it be abolished? And Venerable said, no, I don't think we were asking the question. The real question is, how do we heal from violence, was the second part of the question. How do we heal from violence? Then looking at it from the Buddhist perspective that says every single person is wanting to be happy. Looking at the interdependence of every action that arises based on the conditioning from the past, seeing that every single one of us has the very same seeds of anger, the very same seeds of hate, of craving, the very same seeds of ignorance. Absolutely, we are all the same in that way. And to take a human being in whose conditions, for the most part, are far different from the people who were in that room last night, who never had the kind of love or training that we had, who never had opportunities for education, whose opportunities to be involved with drugs, with alcohol, the things that completely obscure their minds, never had any moral training, really, in how to, quote, behave in a proper society, with none of that. Yet with the same afflictive minds that we all share, under a certain circumstance at a certain time, did an action that harmed a lot of people, unquestionably. But should that be the defining action that makes their life worthless? Because they also have the same seeds of kindness, love, compassion, and a wish to be happy too. And in the work that Venerable Children and several people here have done over the years of our time with working with prison inmates, it's so clear that once those inmates have an opportunity to reflect on their life, they want to turn it around. And when they learn that they can be of benefit, that they can use the opportunity that they have still with their precious human life, it's just astonishing how they practice. Their practice is very inspiring for us, actually, because they're developing love and compassion in what amounts to hell in many cases. So it was a very inspiring gathering in Spokane last night, and perhaps is a movement towards helping to, not to rectify the law, I mean, that's a part of it, but really more importantly for an opportunity for citizens who think about this issue of should we as a society be involved in the legal murder of individuals. What does that say about the violence of our culture? What does that say about the violence in our own minds? And what can each of us do individually to affect change in our own hearts and also in the people around us? I've been talking a little bit a while, but I want to quote from the Spirit of Forgiveness talk that Coretta Scott King gave. They handed this out last night. She says, "I've always opposed the death penalty, although both my husband and mother-in-law were murdered. I refuse to accept the cynical notion that their killers deserve the death penalty. There are many reasons. First and foremost is the clear message that Moses brought down from God, 'Thou shalt not kill.' She says, as a Christian, I also look to Jesus Christ on the cross at Calvary, who said, 'Father, forgive them.'" Sister Mary Ann also had a great quote. I mean, she said, "Our founder, Jesus Christ, was a victim of capital punishment." And this is something to really bring to mind. Why do we kill people to prove that killing is wrong? Is a button that she wears. Coretta Scott King finishes this. She says, "Forgiving violence does not condone violence. There are only two alternatives to forgiving violence: revenge, or adopting an attitude of never-ending bitterness and anger. For too long, we have treated violence with violence, and that's why it never seems to end. And so, we are so fortunate to have met the Buddha's teachings that give us a real alternative to the violence that is in every one of our minds. Slowly over time, we work to overcome that, and most of us have, even if we would just begin a little bit to work with our anger, we see that there's an effect. We can change these minds. Violence does not have to be the nature of ourselves. Violence does not have to be the nature of our society. And we don't have to submit and, we don't have to be passive in the face of state-sponsored violence and harm to other living beings. And so it was a beautiful gathering last night that gives us an opportunity to affect change dramatically in our world. And the more we can bring peace to our own minds, to our own immediate surroundings, to our states, and to our country, the more peace there is in the whole wide world. So it was very beautiful. I hope Venerable will talk about this a lot from her point of view, but as a member of the audience, it was very powerful evening. So thank you, Tori. Thank you all, everyone. And may this end.